There we are. Good morning. So thank you for joining us this morning for our second virtual jobs spotlight. And I'm going to try to keep an eye on our participants as we are starting here. So if we've got anybody else to add, I can do that. My name is Lynn April. I am the ACP coordinator at CESA 8. And along with CESA 8, we are also being sponsored with these job spotlights by Northeast Wisconsin Technical College and by the NUMA Manufacturing Alliance. Our guest speakers today are Gary Ide and Jordan Kinney, who are both at Fincantieri Marinette Marine, and Frank Parker, who is in machine tool operation and CNC at NWTC. There we go. We do have two more dates coming up for the October manufacturing month. So we will include this registration link at the end of the presentation as well. But just so you know, October 14th, we are going to be doing engineering and design, and then October 28th, electromech. We do have some norms to follow today, just so everybody is clear on the expectations. I'm recording the meeting, and that is being broadcast through Inspire Northeast Wisconsin. We do have everyone except our speakers muted, and that just prevents distracting background noises. Everyone's video capabilities are turned off. Only the presenters can be seen, and this prevents too many distractions in the background. Only the presenters will be sharing their screens. Actually, I will be sharing the screens and then forwarding their slides, so you don't need to worry about that. If you need to leave the meeting, I probably will not be manning the meeting information the entire time. So it's important that if you do leave the meeting, you probably will not be able to get back in, just so you know. The chat is going to be how you ask questions during the presentation, and anything that's entered into the chat is visible to the group. But if you have questions, that's a great place to ask those, and we will make sure that each of the speakers answers their questions before we move on to the next one. And we don't anticipate needing to do this, but we do have the ability to remove anyone from the meeting if they are being distracting. And there we go. So we are concentrating this month just on advanced manufacturing based on the manufacturing career pathway. So each week we're kind of looking at a different section of manufacturing. This week we're really concentrating on production and all of the careers that go along with that in the production field. So a question for you, our audience, especially students, to answer. In the chat, if you would, give me your idea of these education levels for welding. If you were to come in as an entry-level welder, what do you think is the level of education you would need in order to do that? Would you need to have just a diploma or a certificate, which is usually under a year? Would you need a 2-year associate degree, a 4-year bachelor's degree, a 6 to 7 year master's degree, or a professional degree of 8 years or more to become an entry-level welder? And Allison from NWTC is going to be manning the chat. So if you would put your guesses in, we would love to hear what you think, and then we will report out.
Don't be shy, everyone.
That has been last time too. It's like, nobody wants to chat.
Anyone?
How about machinist? What do you think is the minimum level of education needed to become a machinist?
Many people say associate degree likely, diploma certificate, more experience based than education, 2 years.
All right, so we're kind of looking down in this area, the diploma certificate to 2-year, and we should be finding out about that as we go along today. So we are going to start with our first guest today. If I can get my computer to cooperate here. Gary Ide is a production manager at Fincantieri Marinette Marine, and so he's going to tell us a little bit about Fincantieri Marinette Marine and then his career ladder to get to the point of being a production manager. So Gary.
Good morning, everyone. So currently I'm employed at Marinette Marine, Fincantieri Marinette Marine. We were purchased approximately 10 years ago by Fincantieri. And they have put almost $200 million into our shipyard as of to date. With that, they have done massive expansions in order for us to be competitive in the global market. Fincantieri is a global company, so they have yards and all over the world, not just the United States or in Europe. They have South America, in Asia. And with that, they bring expertise from all those different regions of the world to bear on any issues that we come across. So it's quite exciting to be in the shipyard, in the shipbuilding career. We have built over 1,500 vessels at Fincantieri Marine to date, and we are currently building LCSs, which are littoral combat ship for the United States Navy, MMSCs, which are multi-mission surface combatants for Saudi Arabia. And then we also just won a contract to design and build one FFGX, which is a fast frigate variant based off an Italian design for the United States Navy, with potential award of 10 of those vessels. So upwards of $6 billion. So they're going to be going through another yard expansion that actually already started. We're going to be putting in a synchro lift very shortly. That'll help facilitate us building larger and larger vessels here on the Great Lakes. I'll go a little bit of background about myself. I started at Marine in 2003, right out of high school. I went to a local parochial high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do for a living, like most students. I wasn't sure exactly my career path. I knew I had to get a job. You have to make money somehow. You got to pay the bills. And the shipyard was hiring. So I applied, got a job down here, and I started out as an outfitter. Outfitting, think of it as a carpenter. It's a jack of all trades. We do doors, windows, joiner bulkheads, insulation, just different types of materials like that. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's really a jack of all trades. From there, our outfitting department got a little bit smaller because we transitioned to a different type of variant. And steel work became a little heavier, so they transitioned me to be a steel fitter. I was a steel fitter for about 4 months. I went through weld school on site, company paid. Got certified in ABS to weld, fillet welds, and then I also went through some classroom and hands-on ship fitting experience. From there, I transitioned to a CNC operator here at the shipyard. Again, they did send me to a couple small, day courses to learn coding, but most of it was on-the-job training. The vast majority of what I experienced was on-the-job training. After being in the union for about 4 years, I decided to spread my wings a little bit. I decided this wasn't for me exactly, just being a laborer. There's nothing wrong with that, but I decided I wanted something a little different. I want to challenge myself more. So I applied and became a supervisor. And when I was a supervisor, I started instructor is where I spent most of my time. And I spent throughout the entire yard. We have supervisors, instructor that do the CNC operators, that manage CNC operators. We have foremen in the structural trade that will actually erect the vessel and stack the large modules, 150-ton modules to build the ship. So anywhere from start to all the way to finish, we have that trade. It's the same thing with pipe. Pipe fitters, we have pipe fitters, not just foremen, but the pipe fitters will actually build pipe spools. And we go all the way through to when they go on trials, we test the toilets, we test the showers, we test the sinks, we test eye washing stations. Everything has to be tested that's on the vessel. But most of my background is in the structural department. As I was in the union, when I was a CNC operator, I started working towards my associate's degree, and I was able to finish that. There was a second shift position available for me in the shipyard when I became a foreman. So I was a second shift supervisor, and I went to school during the day, and I was able to get my associate's degree. Education is very important. I cannot underscore enough how important it is to have that continuing education and always be kind of stretching yourself to see what you're capable of. They are willing to work, and most companies are, they're willing to kind of work around your schedule somewhat. You know, if as long as I was upfront and communicated, hey, I need to take classes here, I put my shift bump in to go to a different shift, I got to go to a different shift. So that was very important for me. And along with that is the on-the-job training. Anytime on-the-job training came up, I always signed up for it. If it was offered, I always took advantage of it. It makes you a more well-rounded individual, more well-rounded manager. And it's free training. I mean, you can't pass that up, really. So the role transitioning from actual laborer from the union into salary, it wasn't that hard. I was, naturally a leader, but it was a little difficult at first, having to have those crucial conversations, those interpersonal communications with people who I would see as they were more senior to me, and they were a lot of more, the age of my parents. And you have to have crucial conversations with them sometimes. Difficult, but you have to do that because they deserve that honest feedback on their performance. So, so after I was a foreman, I was able to move up to be a general supervisor in the panel line, which is where we build two-dimensional panels. We take flat plates, we put longitudinal and transverse frames on them and weld them out. And then from there, I transitioned to SOC 2, which is our module construct, where they take the two-dimensional panels and we build three-dimensional units out of them. Those units will range anywhere from 20 tons up to an excess of 175 tons is what our current capacity is. Fit and weld. Then we do all of our testing on air testing and everything. And then we'll transition that. It goes from that stage of construct, SOC 2 to SOC 3, which is a paint. We do all the painting in-house. They put, it's multiple coats, of course, of high solid epoxy that goes on. And then from there it goes to a pre-outfit stage where they will do all the cold outfitting, which is where, like, if you're an outfitter, you start, they put in insulation, they put joiner bulkheads up, we put electrical equipment on, hang lights, we'll wire up lights, transformers, junction boxes. And from there it goes to the next stage, which is building 10, where I currently am, where we stack the units and build the ship the full length. And I've been fortunate enough where I was a general supervisor and a foreman in all those different stages in my years down here. So you get to see a lot of different areas of the yard and how they interact and their different issues, which gives you a lot more pause when you see a problem. You get to see, okay, well, I found this error, how that error occurred. And it gives you more insight into how to stop that and prevent it from happening again, is what I'm trying to say. After I was a general foreman, I became a superintendent. I moved back up to SOC 1, which is the panel line and plate shop. I was a superintendent of fabrication. We receive plate and everything up there, do all the NC cutting for the entire yard. With that, they grew again once we hit the LCS program, really started hitting strides, and I became superintendent of erection, or superintendent of erect in building 10, which is our large erection facility right now. In there, like I said before, we pick up units that are up to about 175 tons that are fully outfitted. They're plug and play units, and we finish the outfitting of them inside the building, do most of the testing in the building, and then we'll walk out and launch them. One of the experiences I was quite happy with being able to partake in was actually post-delivery. On LCS 7, they allowed me to go down to Florida for about 3 months, and I worked on a delivered LCS down in Dry Dock, which is quite the experience. How we do business up here in Wisconsin, when it's, the ship it's our ship, but we're building it for the Navy. It's completely different than when it's actually a commissioned vessel for the United States Navy. The Navy is on board. I mean, it's their home. You got to treat it as such. So that was very interesting to see how the interactions are between the Navy and all their subcontractors, and how they have to facilitate all this other work coming on board, all the upgrades they do. It was really something to experience. Some of the day-to-day stuff that we do, that production manager levels we work on. We do manpower scheduling. So we have to look at our forecast dates, baseline. So we always track where we are currently and where we are supposed to be at. So you have the baseline and you have your forecast. You're always trying to get back to that baseline schedule or exceed the baseline schedule. So we do manpower scheduling and answer variances, process improvements. I'm also the shipyard dock master. So we launch all the ships ourselves, site launch. You've probably seen it on the internet. Advanced operational planning. And we also do any build strategies for future vessels that are coming up.
All right. This would be a great time for students to be typing in questions that they have in the chat, and Allison will be manning that. I know that Gary, you mentioned communication skills and how important that is, especially when you're working with older employees, just really maintaining that good relationship and being able to have those critical conversations. Are there other employability skills that you think are really important for students to have? Absolutely.
Not only like the soft skills, like I said, being able to communicate with all different generations, but also the biggest thing I see for me is those STEM, that type of education, especially like basic math. Math is one of those, it's a universal language. It really is. Everyone, if they say that, everyone jokes around about it, but it's the truth. Math is a universal language. You can understand that. And that's something that every single department uses, every single discipline uses it. I use it. Of course, HR uses it when you're doing manning. Trying to finance to use it. I mean, every single department uses math. So, I mean, and it doesn't have to be complex. I mean, most of the time, if you can do geometry and basic algebra, that can get you through for the most part.
Great. Allison, you have some questions?
I am not seeing any questions.
Do you have a question?
How long does it take to build the ship?
So from start to finish, from receiving the steel till it sails away, is usually about 2.5 to 3 years. About 3 years, I'd say.
What's your favorite part of your job?
Launching. Right now it's launching. I'm the dock master, but it's awesome getting to see a 3,000-pound vessel get side launched into the river. It's a huge splash. The crowd goes wild. It's pretty neat.
All right, awesome. Well, we will make a shift here. So I will pop up my screen, introduce Jordan, who is a general foreman with Think and Terry. So he is going to now be taking the hot seat and telling us about what he does as a general foreman at Terry. So, morning, Jordan.
Good morning, everyone. As Gary already talked about the insides of Marinette Marine, I don't really think I need to reiterate on that. But a little bit about myself. High school, I played sports, basketball, baseball, football. Sports kind of kept my head on straight, per se. School was very important to me. Math was easy to me, which I'm very thankful for. So throughout high school, I took a few college classes to start my associate's degree. Once I got out of high school, I worked as a bartender, and I worked as a funeral director, apprentice funeral director. So I went to the local campus here and got my associate's degree at UW Marinette Green Bay. And I took a lot of my college classes, anatomy, chemistry, business management, towards being able to own my own funeral home. And as I did that, for 4.5, 5 years, I realized that wasn't for me. So then I applied down here at 2 positions, electrician, which I felt I was the most comfortable in. Come to find out, naval electricians compared to residential electricians are totally different. So I started off as an electrician, didn't really know anybody down here, and was in the right place at the right time and transitioned into be a ship fitter. And after about 4 months, I had broken my ankle and I was off on leave, and I got interviewed for the other position I applied for, which was it was called an expediter in the beginning, and then it changed to a coordinator. So I think that was one of the best positions I ever did down here, as becoming a manager, because it taught you. I didn't really have anybody that reported to me, but I dealt directly with the managers, such as Gary, such as a couple of the other people here in every department. So you dealt with purchasing, you dealt with planning, you dealt with scheduling, you dealt with manufacturing. I was out there with manufacturing the whole time, so that I went to these meetings and we had to problem solve for these people. So I mean, I was to the point that for the NOAA, I was in charge of dock cleanup for the launch as an expediter. So it's just, it was a very involved position that kind of got my feet wet in every department. So I did that for about 3 years, and actually Gary and another guy approached me about becoming a foreman. And somebody had left at the time, and I applied for it and I got the job. So I became a hull department in SOC 5 and 6 foreman for erect. So I had ship fitters and welders reporting to me, and we put all the modules together to create the ship. And then we were also in charge of walkout and launch. My crew were the workers. And I did that for about 3 years. And I transitioned down to stage of construction 2, where, as we had talked about, everything goes from 2D to 3D. I did that for about 2.5 years. And then I transitioned up to SOC 1, which is where we make the 2-dimensional panels. And while I was in SOC 1, I took a job as a general supervisor and moved back down to SOC 2. So as I went through the yard, SOC 5 and 6, I was dockside for about, I would say, 2 out of my 3 years while I was doing the coordinating job with all departments. I was dockside. So that's where we had 3 different contracts on the dockside at one time. We had the NOAA, we had the ARV, which was an Alaskan research vessel, and then we had the LCS. All different contracts, and it was like getting thrown to the wolves. But you manage and you figure it out, and if you can make it through that, I feel like you can make it through anything. So as I transitioned all through the yard, we talked about people skills and public speaking. That was one of the things I took in college. It's very important, especially as you move up in managing, knowing how to present yourself, knowing how to act professional, but still get your point across and get the results out of your employees. Computer skills, I feel, are very important. One of the things would be like Microsoft Office, Excel, Word, PowerPoint. Those are all, we're kind of using our version of Zoom, PowerPoint right now, but these are all important things that we use on a day-to-day basis. I know Gary talked about math. That thankfully was one of my easiest subjects, and it is used everywhere. It's just part of every department, and everywhere you go, we're all metric. We're all metric system here at the shipyard. So learning how to do calipers or micrometers or things of that nature, those are things that are used daily here in different departments. Blueprint reading is something, if that's offered in high school, that would be something to take as well. A lot of times when we do interviews, We asked that if somebody mentions that they were part of, like, I think it's called like Skills USA or something to that nature, as a fitter and as a welder, that's something like I trigger on, and then I question. They're like, okay, so what did that involve? You know, they fabricated a toolbox or fabricated a bench or whatever, and they did the blueprint reading, they fabbed it, they welded it, you know, and they competed in these different things. And that's something for a ship fitter or a welder here that kind of lets us know that, hey, these guys kind of got an interest in it. They know what's going on. They have a feel for it already.
I don't want to interrupt you because you've got a few minutes yet, Jordan, but can you describe, explain, both you and Gary talked about SOCs, SOC 3, SOC 5, SOC 6, what exactly that means?
SOC is a stage of construction. So stage of construction 1 is building 30 to panel line. As Gary talked about, that's from the start. That's from the start of the I-beam and the sheets of steel getting delivered, stored, and then we do the cutting of the I-beam to make tees or stiffeners. We do the cutting of the steel to make the parts. To make the parts not only for SOC 1 or stage construction 1, but make the parts throughout the entire erection of the ship. So in building 30, SOC 1, they cut parts that might not be installed for a year and a half later. You know, it's the start. So you make everything 2D, and then stage of construction 2 is when you make modules, individual modules, which you put together to make grand modules. So there's a grand mod construct, which is part of stage construction 2 as well. SOC 3 is paint, which Gary talked a little bit about. SOC 4 is pre-outfit, stage of construction 4. And then stage of construction 5 and 6, which is going to be your erection of the ship, is all in building 10. And it goes all the way to SOC 10. SOC 10. So 7 would be the walkout and the launch. SOC 8 through 10 would be your testing, your trials, and everything to the delivery of the ship. So SOC is SOC, stage of construction.
It's a way of breaking up the vessel, the build of the vessel, into activities being done. So in SOC 1, that's where we build all the sub-assemblies and all the simple foundations and panels. You know, SOC 3 is where they're going to paint all the modules.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for that definition, because I was just a little unclear on that. If you've got anything more to share before we get into questions?
Well, I mean, we could talk about a lot of things. I mean, learning how to, like just thinking of things what kids can do in school to better themselves, or to make them more prepared. Some of the things that we look to as you become an adult, safety is very important at work and outside of work. We need people to show up safe and be healthy and capable of doing the job, but we also want them to leave safe and be able to go home to their families and whatnot. So making smart decisions outside of work, at work are very important. And doing the right things, being part of, like, I'm part of the public a lot. I coach baseball, I coach basketball, I officiate basketball, baseball, football, softball. I try to be involved with the community, with the baseball fields and the rec departments around here. That all ties into everything. We have, as we grow bigger, we get people from all over the U.S. that come here to work that are involved in our community. So the more you can become involved in the community, I think helps as well, because we contribute a lot to the community too, through scholarships or whatever the case may be. Becoming members of like the Elks Club or some of these local organizations, that all, it's a big circle, and it all comes back to help everybody.
That's a great point. I know it's not uncommon for people to switch careers during their lifetime, but you made a pretty substantial switch from funeral director to working at Fincantieri. What skills were you already learning as a funeral director that you could bring with you onto your job here?
I would say the business management, so like the accounting skills or economics. I took microeconomics and macroeconomics in college. Not so much of the anatomy, but the chemistry a little bit with our safety department and the hazards. Some of that becomes, it's not like it's learning anything new. But I would say the big things would be through the business management portion of knowing Microsoft Office, knowing how to be organized and keep things organized, knowing how to present certain things to your crews. I think sometimes kids learn easier on visual rather than somebody just lecturing. Showing a picture, showing a graph, showing anything seems to teach kids or young adults easier than just words and mouth.
Great. Allison, do we have any questions in the chat?
We do. Is there anything you wish you would have done differently in your career path? Advice on what to do rather than what to do versus what not to do. But is there anything you wish you would have done differently?
I can't say I do. I mean, like was said, I mean, I went from taking college courses to go to mortuary school to now being a general supervisor in shipbuilding, two totally opposite spectrums. I guess I don't think I would. I mean, everything happens for a reason, and you live and learn. And something triggered my mind to come here and apply. And the main reason I applied here was because I was traveling so much. I was in Green Bay half the time, and up here working jobs, building houses, roofing, siding. I was all over. So I just wanted a steady job, and I happened to do it at the right time. And we're growing tremendously, and I plan on retiring from it. So.
Yep.
Great. All right. Well, thank you both for joining us and telling us about your career paths. And we are going to make a shift. So let me share my screen here there we go, Frank Parker, who is CNC faculty at NWTC. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about a couple of their programs and then also share his pathway. Frank.
Hi, everybody. In terms of welding here, as Lynn kind of said, I'm in the CNC department or machine tool department. But to kind of speak high level about the welding program, it's one of the largest programs in the state, and really has a good method behind it. Basically, we're almost always upgrading our equipment. So just about every 3 years, we work with Miller Electric to get up-to-date modern equipment in the welding labs. It is a 9-month to graduation program, so it's a technical diploma. And you get right around 600 hours in the actual welding lab in that program. So there's a lot of hands-on time in the welding program. You'll learn things like blueprint reading, which was brought up a couple times by some of the other speakers, metallurgy, and then 4 different arc welding processes in that 9 months. Also some metal fabrication basics, and basically most of the students are getting jobs before they graduate out of the welding program. Even through the pandemic, that really hasn't slowed down at all. So that program is going really well here. It has been for years. So good choice. On a personal level, if you want to go to the next slide, Lynn.
I think the next one was a little bit about machining.
Okay, our machining program here, that's actually where I'm teaching or instructing for the last 8 years. It's actually 2 technical diplomas that are stacked. So there is a first-year technical diploma that you can take. Again, that's right around 9 months. And then there's a second year that you can choose to take if you want to really further the education. That's a whole separate technical diploma. Again, another 9 months. There is no 2-year commitment necessarily. It's just the second year really advances the knowledge and really makes you more of a technician. That's called CNC technician. The first year is CNC machinist. So the first year we really focus on the fundamentals, so to speak. So you, excuse me, you really learn how to program, set up, and operate a variety of CNC machines. We utilize a lot of manual equipment in order to do that, just because the machines are powered by your own hands. Things move a little slower, and a lot of that knowledge that you learn on a manual machine actually is related to and applied to CNC machines in the program. So first year is probably 60% manual machining, 40% CNC. Second year is probably closer to 95% CNC, 5% manual. So you can kind of get an idea of what kind of exposure you're getting to each style of machine there. About 500 hours of shop time in the first year. So there is still a lot of hands-on time, which is probably the best learning method for most people. You're going to learn blueprint reading, again, the basics, all the way up to some of the more complicated facets of blueprint reading, maybe GD&T, some fits and things like that are specific to the machine trade. Got G code and CAM. So we spend a lot of time in G code, both in the first year and the second year. First year is kind of laying the groundwork because it really is kind of like learning a new language. So you learn the basics, what the commands mean, how to kind of organize them, or you know, get like a program that flows well and actually produces parts repeatably. And then with CAM in the first year, we basically just kind of introduce CAM. So we get the students drawing the parts, assigning tools, and assigning toolpath, all in the end goal of making a program. So we really want to focus on the G code side of things because that's what CAM gives us, is a G code to produce parts. Second year, you really go a lot farther with the G code into much more depth, and much farther with the CAM software, where you get into the 3D machining and some of the more complicated aspects of CAM. You get 600 hours about in the second year program. If you choose to go to the second year program, there's about 600 hours of shop for the whole program, where you'll learn more of the fixture and tool making, some tool and die work. So it's really taking the next step and really getting kind of accelerated with the machining field in the second year program. So that's the curriculum here for machining. In terms of my own personal story, I was kind of an average high school student. I chose not to go into a university or college directly after high school. I decided to enter the workforce. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And oddly enough, I didn't even take shop classes in high school. And yet I ended up being a machinist in my adult years. So after high school, I basically worked labor jobs, kind of odd jobs, a few years here, a few years there, some in the building trades like insulation. I worked in a paper warehouse for about 7 years, doing just about anything and everything under the roof there. So started there as a forklift operator, worked on the production lines for a little bit. And then finally I got a promotion into the maintenance department. And that's what really opened my eyes into manufacturing, basically through the maintenance department there. So we were fixing machines that were producing the paper products. And I had to spend time, bringing parts to machine shops to get repaired. Learned a little bit about welding there at that job. So that kind of piqued my interest in that field. So I kind of looked at NWTC to see if I could further my career going down that path. First off, I started in the machining, or the welding program rather. And that really, I just kind of found out it wasn't for me. So the other on my short list was CNC machinist. At that time, it was called machine tool operation. So I decided to give that a try, and I really found it very interesting. I really took a liking to it right off the bat and poured myself into that. At that time, that was still a 9-month commitment, and I basically was in my late 20s by the time I finished that, and moved on, and I got a job before I even graduated from the program. Luckily, I got a job at a local machine shop that really let me explore a lot of the different types of machines. It was a job shop environment, so I had a lot of variety. Basically, I was given a print and kind of let loose in the shop, so to speak. And not all shops are like that. I was fortunate to get that type of position, but it was a lot of independent programs set up and operate a wide variety of machine tools to produce parts for all sorts of different kinds of industries. We had everything from a farmer coming in that wanted a repaired PTO shaft for his tractor, all the way to Georgia Pacific and Kimberly-Clark parts that needed to be made for multi-million-dollar paper machines. So it was a very wide range of customers and projects. But some of the stuff I like the most about it is the problem solving and the critical thinking end of things. I feel like I'm a pretty good problem solver. So this trade really did fit me pretty well. Kind of wish I would have done it earlier. That was one of the things that one of the other speakers said. If I could change anything, I wish I would have went into machining earlier. But then again, I didn't really know that I had an affinity for it at the time. Another thing that I really like about the trade is that I learn something new every day, and that's something that you have to decide that you want to do. There is aspects of the trade where you can be an operator and not necessarily advance, and that's fine. That's what some people want to do, and that's a very important job. For me, I was always pushing to learn more, no matter what. So if a training came available, I jumped on it. So they had to basically tell me to slow down at sometimes because I was trying to get involved in too many things. So through my time at that machine shop, I had the opportunity to become a scheduler and a estimator. So more or less the foreman of the shop. It was a very small shop. So I was familiar with all the customers and the processes. So I did that for a while and decided to go to a university at that time. So by then I was about 30 years old. I enrolled at UW Stout to become an instructor. So that was a career and technical education diploma, or a degree rather. And a job opened up at NWTC, and I decided to give it a try, and I got the job on the first try, which I did not think was going to happen. But luckily I got in here and just really never look back. I really enjoy instructing and showing people this trade and kind of getting them involved with it. So that's kind of where I'm at now. So I've been here for about 8 years. Started out under a grant here, which means basically that's the college version of temporary employment, I guess you could say. Kind of earned my way up and became one of the instructors that did kind of the odds and ends of the program, first and second year. And then about 2 years ago, I finally got my own first year cohort of students. So the way we do it is you'll have a cohort. All the students will be with each other for just about all the same classes, same students. And you work through with one instructor through the vast majority of the program. That's about it.
Okay. And Allison can man the chat. So please ask any questions that you have for Frank about the CNC department, especially at NWTC. You mentioned that you had already secured a job before you graduated. So what is job placement? What are the job placement prospects like for NWTC students now?
Well, it's even more aggressive now in the current marketplace than it was when I graduated 17 years ago or 18 years ago, whatever it was. Just about every student that wants to work in a machine shop right now is getting a job prior to graduation. Very similar to the welding. Just about everyone that is looking to get a job welding is getting a job prior to graduation. So there's a lot of jobs out there available in a lot of different industries. it's a very hot market for both trades at this point.
Okay. Allison?
Great. There are no questions in the chat, but Frank, could you explain what I'm looking at on the screen?
Oh, sure. The far left side picture is a project that some of the second year students did. We had a particularly motivated batch of students at one point in our second year program, and they decided to build a V-twin engine. So it's a little mock-up of basically a motorcycle engine. Everything that you see there was made in our machine shops here at the Green Bay campus. Basically, the only thing that wasn't is some of the fasteners that are used. So some of the basic hardware that you can buy just about anywhere. But every other piece that you see there on that motor or that engine was made here using our equipment, the G codes that you would learn in class, the CAM software you learn in class, and just the content that you learn, like fixture and tool making and things like that. Center top, that is basically our CNC mobile lab. That makes its way through some of the districts here in the NWTC district. Some of the high school students might be familiar with that. Essentially, that's equipped with a small mill and lathe and some computers in order to kind of help integrate manufacturing content into high school curriculum. Upper right is an example of a milling machine operation. So you can't see the rest of the picture, but that's actually 5-axis, so a multi-axis machine. And it's making the cavities that you see there using an end mill. So that's, again, something that you would learn quite a bit about in our program, first and second year. The second year really does the multi-axis machining. First year is just focused on the fundamentals and the basics, so not quite getting to that level. And then bottom right is a pendant of some sort. It's got Darth Vader there in the middle, and that's another example of something that could be produced, maybe not necessarily on an industrial basis, but definitely within the realm of capability for a CNC machine.
All right. And we have Frank's contact information here. So if you are interested in more information about the CNC program or the welding program at NWTC, please feel free to contact him. Thank you so much for joining us, Frank.
Yep. Thank you.
We do have on October 14th, some more speakers joining us on engineering and design. So we will be hearing from someone from Fincantieri Marinette Marine, also an engineer from Marion Body Works, and then a prototype designer who owns his own company from Girardin Fabrication and Design at NWTC. So I'm going to actually get out of this so I can drop that into the chat. It will let me copy and paste here. And the only other thing then we have is, thank you so much for joining us. And we do have a survey. So we would love for you to complete the survey. So the first link that I'm putting in there is the link for registration. So, I'm assuming most of you know how to register because you're here, but if you've got any of the other ones, we've got 2 more coming up on manufacturing that you're interested in, that you want to register, or you want to send the registration to somebody that would be interested in this, please send them that registration link. And then the second link that I just dropped in is the link to our survey. So we'd love to hear from you and get information on what you learned today. And if you have any ideas of things that you would like to see coming up, this is something that we would like to continue to partner with NWTC to continue in other areas outside of manufacturing through the rest of the school year. So we would love to hear from you to know what career clusters you'd like more information on. So that really brings us to nearly the top of the hour here. So thank you again to all 3 of our speakers. We really appreciate you being here today. And thank you to all of the students and staff and even some classes that joined us today. And we hope to see you next week. So thanks a lot.